Hello, this is John Klein with the North Carolina State University Office of Information Technology. And this is an experiment to do a quick video to demonstrate the actual creation of a package with the SCCM at use at NC State to help people get comfortable and to see what's going on and hopefully get to a point where they can make their own packages. It is intended for OU administrators in the WolfTech Active Directory, so it may not be useful to you if you're not one of those folks. I'm not going to cover anything hard, just a basic MSI install. If you have something that is custom installable silently with an MSI exec or a setup.exe, the targets may be different, but the concepts are exactly the same. As I disclaim here, it's not scripted, so it may make you crazy, but the intention is this will be an inexpensive way to get the message out for folks who can't necessarily attend direct training. If you run into trouble with anything Active Directory, we've got a new site coming up. There still is a lot of stuff that hasn't been moved over. As you will be able to tell as the presentation commences, there's still a lot of things that are in flux and haven't been worked out, so it may be a little bit cowboy for your taste, but hopefully we'll have future videos that have a more polished look and feel. Alright, very quickly, there's three SCCM terms that I need to define in order to provide a context for this presentation. We are going to create an SCCM package which contains the files and the command lines that actually cause the software to go from uninstalled to installed. We are going to advertise this to a collection or list of computers, and so in this who, what, where, and why, the package is the what, the collection is the who, and the advertisement, along with some advice from the collection, is the how and when and why. So there's three pieces that you need: what you're going to do, who you're going to do it to, and how it should happen. Okay, so for our distribution portion, what is a distribution? Well, if you're taking the Microsoft certification exams, distribution is not an application, it's a configuration change to apply to a workstation collection. In reality, it's a set of files and some command lines to run against those files to install a package or create this abstract configuration change. The thing to know about distribution points is that unlike a group policy or some other distribution methods that have been used on campus, you don't actually map a drive to a server in order, or connect to the server to download the files to the workstation. Over HTTPS, the Background Intelligent Transfer Service will download the files that you need, and it does so in ways that try to minimize the impact to the end user. So if you're on a laptop on a 56K line in Europe, you will get your SCCM distributions. You just may not get them as quickly because it's sipping on the bandwidth instead of just going full throttle all the time. We have three distribution points on campus. They're monitored, they're watched. If one server is destroyed in the middle of a transfer, either of the other two can pick it up. Everything is hashed and tolerant, and hopefully you can depend on it. So let's first gather up our files for distribution. I have downloaded from my vendor site, or in this case my freeware site, the MSI files that I want to install. Now I've got them on my temp directory of my local hard drive, I need to have them somewhere on the network where the SCCM server can copy it to the distribution server and create the bits and all that happy stuff. Now, because I'm a sophisticated packager, I've already got a folder on a network share that includes the vendor. I've got a folder for that. I've got a folder for the product, and then I'm also putting the version number on that. Because this is not my first rodeo, I am going to create a directory for the 64-bit MSI, and I'm going to create a directory for the 32-bit MSI. And the reason that I'm doing that is that I will actually end up making two packages. One package will have just the 64-bit binaries for 64-bit systems, one just the 32, and I don't actually have to clog up any bandwidth on a 56K line to Europe over bits to deliver binaries that will never ever be used. So let's go to the Configuration Manager console and make some packages. In the Configuration Manager, under Computer Management, Software Distribution is the Packages and Advertisements folder. Now, more than the usual disclaimers apply at this point. The procedure that I'm about to demonstrate will generate packages. The wizard's output will not meet the current NCSU naming standards, and I am not entirely sure how we're going to work this out. The current standards are basically the group policy standards, which are to start with your departmental prefix, put in a category of the software, the vendor, the product, and the version. The wizards have their own format for setting up. You'll see that OIT is not following that convention because I use the wizard to create these apps, and they seem to be quite difficult to rename with this GUI. So we may have to come up with something more clever. The folders, by the way, are a trick. They are useless. You can't establish security, you can't group. It is vitally important that everybody follow the naming convention and do things correctly, or we're never going to be able to distribute administration of this properly. So I'm going to go under my container. I'm not going to hit new package, which I think is the easiest way to get the correct naming convention. I'm going to hit new package from definition, which runs a wizard that does a little bit more work for me, but also makes some assumptions about my naming. So as I've mentioned, I'm not entirely sure how this is going to be worked out. Microsoft is trying to keep a database of, here are the various software broken down by vendor. I'm doing a new package that is not on this list, so I need to browse. And I'm going to go to my, oh Lord, where am I going to go? I don't have this under network. I do have this under network. Forgive my blundering. I will attempt to cut this out of the final edit. So WolfTech AD NCSU EDU OIT original media is where I want to be. I then want to go to my vendor, who was nsclient.org. I want to go to this. I always do the 64-bit versions first because those are the ones I like the most. Okay, so it reads the MSI and can pull the language and version and other useful information. It defaults to always copy the files from a source directory because it figures, hey, it's an MSI file. If you want to install it, you have to have the file. You would use the other settings if you had a command to run where you wanted to run shutdown.exe or netsh or something like that. I am going to name this package. No, I can't name the package. Because I browsed to the MSI file, it knows where it's coming from. Again, I've got my 64-bit separated out just so that it can make a copy to the distribution points that only include the pieces that matter for a 64-bit version. And that inability to change the customer or the package name is why I'm going to end up with a package that doesn't actually meet the naming convention. My early attempts, a folder you could rename. A package does not have rename available in the context menu, and under properties it's actually computing this name, which is read-only, from the data that is placed here in the vendor field. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the My Solutions Nordic, I'm going to put that in the name and more or less follow our naming convention of putting a dash to separate the name of the vendor from the name of the package. And God help me, for manufacturer, I'm going to put OIT experimental dash. Which is going to create something that approximates our naming convention, where it definitely starts with my OU prefix, which is OIT, dash EX. At this point, we're matching the convention. The space between the vendor and the rest of it, and the format of the rest of it, including the language and other info, is what messes it up. I do kind of like the thought of being able to deliver software in multiple languages. I could just delete this and say it's not United States English, but I kind of like that, so I'm going to leave it in. As long as I'm violating the convention, I might as well violate it good. So that has renamed it, so this is now closer, but not quite right. So the next, I have not identified which distribution points I want to copy the files to. So at this point, I've created some entries in a database. I haven't actually prepared the software for distribution. Before I copy it up to the distribution point, I want to show you the reason that I ran this wizard is because for an MSI file, there are certain basic configurations that are always defined. I'm installing this per user, I'm installing this per computer, I'm doing an unattended or an intended install. I find it very useful to have these and to have them all identified so that you can have the most flexibility and least chance of a typo as you're cutting and pasting the programs. I will edit the per system unattended instead of creating it from scratch. You could also create it from scratch. The command line that it pulls is the basic MSI exec / Q for quiet is what makes it unattended. All users equals 2 is the install for all users in a per system. I'm not entirely sure what the /m is doing here, but that's why I enjoy using the wizard. For apps that are documented on appdeploy.com, or which the vendor gives additional command line options,